Welcome, everyone, to our regular ongoing weekday morning podcast on Kabbalah for Heretics with me, your heretic-in-chief, Yakov, Leib, HaKohain. We have, for the past 30 years, register that in your head. Every weekday morning for the past 30 years, every weekday morning, with some rare exceptions, if I'm not feeling well or if I'm in the hospital for 2.5 months, but with rare exception, every weekday morning, we have been sitting here learning the Zohar, volume by volume, cover to cover, page by page, sentence by sentence. And in that way, we have completed volumes 1, 2, and 3, and are now completing volume 4. We're very close to finishing volume 4, and when we do, we will then enter into volume 5. And if history repeats itself, it'll take us several years to complete volume 5. But here we are. The Zohar has been describing this encounter between two great rabbis and this young boy leading an ass with a pot of honey on the ass's back. And at a certain point, this young boy begins speaking, and they are astonished at his wisdom. Now, this is a fairly common symbol in the Zohar. It's not always a young man, it's sometimes a little boy, and sometimes a very old man. But there is always this symbol of the unexpected source of wisdom. So as they've been talking, they have been terribly impressed by the young man and invited him to come with them. And he does. And we left off with the following. So they went along holding his hand until they came to a field where they sat down. They said to him, "Tell us something that your father taught you concerning the work of creation." Now that is not an idle question. When the Zohar says, "Tell us about the work of creation," it means the work of creation. The young man thereupon discoursed on the verse, quote, "And God created the great sea monsters," unquote. He said, "The name Elohim is usually applied," etc. And we spoke of that in our last podcast. Elohim is plural. The name of God that is used in the entire first chapter of Genesis is Elohim. So it translates not that God did this and God that did that, but the gods did this, the gods did that. Only with the creation of man is the name Yahweh, a singular, invoked. Man is meant to dispel and reunify the disparate parts of God. God fell into duality by the act of creating the world, by the act of creating the universe. He fell into disunity. But man is then created to restore God to that previous state of unity, as shown by the use of Yahweh at the creation of man in Genesis 2. The great sea monsters are the patriarchs, which are watered first and spread their roots throughout all. Now listen, the great sea monsters, if you hear, and I'm sure this is what happens, when you hear it saying the sea monsters were created, you see in your mind's eye monsters, evil monsters, but that is not entirely true. They are the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They are monsters for God, spreading their roots. Again and again and again we see that evil is deceptive. Good is deceptive. What appears to be evil is evil, but also in it is good. Fighting against the evil in itself. seeking to restore the unity between the good and the evil in itself. Not to make one predominant over the other, but to restore the unity between good and evil. Both come from exactly the same source, the mind of God, but they are no longer a unity. They are a disparity. Man, after God realizes what he has done to himself or herself, after God realizes what it has done to itself, needs a mirror outside of itself to help it restore itself to unity. That's why man is created. Now, there are other explanations for why man is created. This is the Zohar's explanation, and furthermore, it is my interpretation of the Zohar's explanation. But the problem is that when God creates man to help him, God, restore unity to himself, he again further divides himself. Male and female created he him. The first creation. And furthermore, that first Adam has no soul. It doesn't say, and he gave them a soul, etc. He blesses them. He blesses the first Adam and Eve, but he does not ensoul them. They are like beasts in the field, it says. And so is their progeny. Well, that too is not good. So God creates a third Adam from the dust of the soil. From the dust of the soil. And into that Adam, quote, he breathed a breath of life, a soul, and that man became a, quote, living being, unquote, or living creature. He creates this living creature that moves about on all sides, above and below, which the waters brought forth abundantly, namely, the waters of that supernal stream which issues from Eden and waters the tree there, that it may spread its roots and provide food for all. Now, I would refer you back to the drawing of the 10 Sephiros, because that is what this is a reference to. That moveth, living creature, that moves about on all sides, above and below. It is everywhere and in everything. That moveth, this is the living creature that moves about on all sides, above and below, which the waters brought forth abundantly, namely the waters of that supernal stream which issues from Eden. And the stream, the waters, are, with a capital E, energy. Just pure energy. God is pure energy. And it can neither be created nor destroyed. The original form of God can neither be created nor destroyed. The wiseacres will say, oh, all right, such and such created this and that. Well, how about who created that first God? Nobody. It is and was energy with consciousness. It's not yet a physical body. I don't think it ever is a physical body. The mind simply perceives it that way. But it is energy. That's why I'm so fascinated with Tesla. And the world is fascinated with Tesla. Mostly with the very mystical undercurrent of what he was thinking and promoting. Energy. Electrical energy. And that emanates from Keter, the brain, down through all the 9 remaining Sephiros below it, like a river. The center column is like a river with branches that go off to the left and the right to nourish the Sephiros on both sides. Now, the importance of this is what is happening right now, today. I read the most foolish thing on Facebook. Somebody who thought or thinks they know more than they do was knocking those people who apply pure theology to doing. Well, what? If that were not the case, there would be no such thing as physics. As engineering, Engineering is the applied branch of pure physics. And there is the same in, quote, religious, unquote, theology. There is an ultimate movement toward some form of empiricism. And it is incumbent upon us to understand what that movement is so that we may participate in it. Why? In order to heal God, not to heal ourselves, not to heal the world, not to heal the universe, but to heal God, who is the source of everything, including evil as well as good. Right now, at this moment, that is what is going on, and that's what's happening. Namely, the waters of that supernal stream which issues from Gan Eden and waters the tree there, that it may spread its roots and provide food for all. Spiritual food, of course. That spiritual food being energy. I mean, really, what is it when we die? We no longer have energy. We are no longer energized. Energy leaves us. Without energy, there is no life. Without God, there is no life. Therefore, God is energy. That's called a logical conclusion. God is energy. Life is energy. Therefore, God is energy. And energy is God. Well, what the hell do I have to know that for? Well, excuse me. I thought you were here because you wanted to know more about God. Or are you listening because you want to know more so that your ego can get bigger? And every winged fowl after its kind, these are the holy angels whose function it is to sanctify the name of their master every day, or to perform the messages of their master in this world. It's nonsense to say that that pure wisdom is its own pursuit. It is not. It is meant for the angels, as it were, to perform the messages of their master. Everything you do, everything I do, is a performance of the messages of the master. We either are getting it correctly or incorrectly. We either know that or do not know that. If we know that, if we know what the messages of God are at any given moment, we can fulfill that message. That doesn't mean we're going to fulfill it perfectly, but we can at least begin to fulfill it. If the teachings and wisdom of God are not to fulfill themselves in action, what the hell are they for? For you? For your ego? No. For the fulfillment of God. That's a mighty big assignment. And it's very difficult for most people to come to terms with. So their first reaction is to deny it. And what is it that causes that denial? The ego. Remember the ego? We talk about it. Its name is Hasatan, the adversary, or in shorthand, Satan. Satan is not this red dude with horns and a beard and a pitchfork and cloven hooves and a tail. It is the ego. And just as God has no inherent form or shape, the ego has no inherent form or shape. This is really too much. Oh, said Rabbi Yehuda, this is really too much for one so young to know, and to foresee that he will be removed to a place of eminence. Ah. So who is it that this young man represents? Come on. It says it couldn't just be a young man. No. It's too much for just a young man to know. It is, in fact, this is a prefiguration of the Christ. As are all of these anonymous, ambiguous figures that we see sprinkled throughout the Zohar. We'll continue with this tomorrow. In the meantime, let me mark my place. All right. Now, as I do every morning pretty much, I ask Yishai and David, who is not here this morning, who are my recording technicians, if they have any comments or questions. Because as you know, we do not invite students to these sessions. These are recording sessions. They are not classes. But Yishai and David, when he's here, are kind of representative of the thousands of you who are listening. So I asked them if they have any comments or questions about what was said this morning, and to share it, as it were, so that they may speak for the listening audience, or at least some of them. Yishai, go ahead. There we go. Yishai has a comment. Yishai says, very powerful, slamming with the Holy Spirit on this podcast. God is energy, which isn't created or destroyed. Theology ultimately moves towards some form of empiricism. Evil and good are deceptive, both containing each other, and movement toward reuniting God. Oh, that's beautiful. Beautiful, Yishai. Beautiful. I hope that the listeners got as much out of that as I just did. Excellent, Yishai. Well, now we'll close our podcast as we do every morning by my reciting the sacred Kaddish, the prayer for the dead, in honor of the memory of our departed, beloved friend and fellow Kohen, Leonard Cohen. Yiskadal v'yiskadash shmei rabo. Ba'amo divro chirusei v'yamlech machusei. V'chayachon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol beis Yisrael. B'galo uvizman kori v'imnu amen. Yehei shmei rabo mevarach. Leilom u'mayav. Yisbarach v'yistabach v'yispa'al v'yisaseh. V'yisadar v'yisalei v'yisalal. Shmei d'kutsha b'richu. Leilom mincha b'irachasa tushvachasa v'nechemasa. Tameran b'omo v'imru amen. Yehei shlomo rabba. Mechayinu v'yakol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'ma'amov hu ya'asei shalom. Olenu v'yakol Yisrael v'imru amen. And let everyone please say amen. Well, that concludes our podcast for this morning. And God willing, He'll allow me to wake up tomorrow morning with added life. We will continue where we have left off. In the meantime, Yivarechecha v'yishmorecha.